Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show. Today I have a special end of the year episode for us. And we're going to be talking about some Christmas comics. And joining me for this conversation is George from the now defunct George and Tony Entertainment Show. Hey, George.
Hey, Eric. Merry Christmas to you. Ho, ho, ho.
Merry Christmas, George. Thanks for opting to join me here. I know that you are recovering from some dental stuff, and
yes.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk some comics with me today.
Anytime I can talk comics with you, Eric, is a great day for me, especially Christmas comics. I love Christmas comics.
Yeah. So I want to remind our listeners here that this whole idea of talking about some Christmas comics came out of I think a couple different conversations that we've had over the last year, essentially. But back on episode 106 of my show, George joined me back in October of 2016 to discuss the October 2016 previews, in which there were a bunch of holiday-themed comics. And we talked a lot about things that people could get as gifts for Christmas time and whatnot. And I remember thinking, George, as we approached October again, I wanted to get you back on and do the same exact thing. And then next thing I knew, it was already November. But saving grace here, thanks to George, during one of our recording sessions from one of the previous episodes that you've been on, I think you brought up this very idea of talking about some Christmas comics at this time.
Cool, and I'm glad you took me up on it.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I went through my list. I checked it twice or some such, and found some. I went through all the holiday. Well, what I did, George, is I went through my program that I have all my comics cataloged in, searched for Christmas, and I found a good, I don't know, dozen or so, and I went through all those as we were preparing for this, and got the number down to 3 that I wanted to talk about with you. I know you have some, and we'll get to those in a second. But I did mention at the top of the show the now defunct George and Tony Entertainment Show, and I'm sorry to report to my listeners who may not have caught up on the news, George, but you have ended the George and Tony Entertainment Show.
Yes, Tony and I have ended the show after 200 episodes. If anybody ever took a chance on listening to my show, even if it was just when Eric was on, you may have realized that Tony wasn't around, especially this year. So to have a show where half of the people whose names are in the title aren't there, it's a little weird. And it's a little challenging to put out a weekly podcast on time when there's only 2 of you and one person isn't there, and you have to find cordial guest hosts like yourself to come on and fill in for Tony. The gag, I guess, ran a little thin early in the year, but I kept it going.
Yeah, you did.
And the question was, when would I stop? Because I knew Tony wasn't coming back for any length of, he wasn't going to come back at all. To get him to come back even for one episode was a twist of the arm. Mm-hmm. And as I said on episode 200, or maybe even said it on 199, just to set up that 200 was going to be the last episode, I'm kind of a completist and a numerologist, but I like holiday-themed episodes, just like I like holiday-themed comics. I wanted to record around the holidays, but everybody's busy. So, for instance, it might have been hard to get you to come on as a guest co-host or some of my other guest co-hosts. Tony wasn't, if I got lucky to get him for 200, trust me. And I love the Olympics. I would love to be recording when the Olympics are on in February. But that's 3 months from now. You know, I couldn't see going another 3 months without Tony. Keeping a show with Tony's name in the title, and he's not there. Mm-hmm. 200 was a nice round number, especially for us comic guys, right? To end a series on something that's a multiple of 50.
Right.
Yeah, so I shot for 200. It worked out great. The 200th episode posted the Monday after the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah.
kind of a nice time to end because everybody, even podcasts like yours, Eric, you guys may be taking a little bit of a break for the holidays. So I think a lot of listeners are used to, which is unfortunate, but they're used to their podcast content being a little different this time of year anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured it was a good time. Number 200, the timing was right. And now I get to be on shows like yours as a guest, try and bully my way in to other shows if I can, just to keep those podcasting chops nice and fresh.
Yeah. You got to keep in shape.
Yes. Yeah. Well, people don't know this, but my Skype connection and my call recorder totally screwed us up tonight. And I think that's just because it's been idle for so long. And it didn't know what to do when I fired it back up today.
I hear you. I feel your pain, George, because as you well know, I'm having a bit of difficulty with my recording software for some strange reason. But we're soldiering on, as it were, and hopefully we'll not encounter any more issues. But I just want to say, George, a couple things. One, people should go listen to your show. It's still available. Even though you've stopped recording any new shows, it's still going to be available. People can go download all of your episodes. And there's a lot of great content out there. George has a lot of good interviews, including a lot of people who work in comics. And sometimes he, for some reason, thought it'd be a good idea to bring on people like myself and talk about comics. But you know, you had me on your show. I counted it up, and unless I miscounted, I've been on a total of 10 times.
That's right. You were.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that. Most of that was from 2017. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we've had a good long year of getting together on your show and talking about comics and other things. And your episode 200, George, I don't know whose idea it was to do what you did with Tony and Greg Schiegel. I mean, when I heard Greg Schiegel talking on there as the interviewer / moderator and just the way you guys did that, I loved it. It was brilliant. I think they really should go listen to a bunch of your episodes if they haven't already. Start from the beginning and work your way through. But man, you got to get to episode 200 because it was so much fun.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you for mentioning that. If only to give me an opportunity to thank Greg Schiegel, who's been on your show before too, the creator of the Pix graphic novels, and he's a frequent contributor on SpongeBob Comics. He was gracious enough to host. He was the host for the 200th episode of the George and Tony Entertainment Show. And that was really nice of him to do that. Obviously, he didn't have to do it. He was very kind to do it. And it took him some time. You know, it wasn't a one-day affair. And I think it worked out very well. I love that episode. If all our episodes could have been like that, well, it would have been a totally different show. But but yeah, we're all very proud of episode 200 of the George and Tony Entertainment Show. And thank you for mentioning that the archives are going to remain out there. We still have a relationship with the Realm Network. The George and Tony domain name, I don't know who has it now, but I don't. So don't go to georgeandtony.com anymore. Go to realmnetwork.com, click on the George and Tony banner, and our archives are there, and you could sample some of the other shows on the Realm Network. And Eric, may I put in another plug here real quick?
Go right ahead.
You don't have a relationship with Amazon, do you?
No.
Okay.
Not, other than being a buyer.
Okay. Well, then I implore your listeners, because not only are we on the Realm Network, but we're on iTunes, but iTunes doesn't keep the full catalog out there. I think they only have the last 100 or 150 episodes. So you wouldn't have an opportunity to grab them all unless you went to realmnetwork.com or georgeandtony.libsyn.com, so you can grab all the episodes if you wanted to go way back to see the origins of the George and Tony Entertainment Show. But we retain our relationship with the Realm Network because hopefully I will be part of a new project in 2018, and they have been kind enough to host that show, whatever it may be. And like I said on episode 200, one of the stipulations was that I not be a part of that new show. I don't know how that's going to work. but they have been kind enough to hold that spot for us. So they're leaving the George and Tony Entertainment Show up so people can guide themselves through it, maybe get to know me, get to know Tony. I want them to get to know Tony. And unfortunately, Tony won't be part of the new project, but they've been kind enough to leave that there, and they've got a spot for whatever new project I've got in 2018. To show them that people are hitting the site, though, since it is the holidays, I would ask, if you are going to do any shopping through Amazon, please use the link on the George and Tony Entertainment Show page at realmnetwork.com. And I implore you to do this because I know we all listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of those podcasts probably have Amazon as part of their money-making stream. Well, they probably also have a Patreon, some other sponsors, a PayPal thing that you can do for them, and maybe they might even have merchandise. All we ever had was Amazon. And if you are going to venture out to listen to any of our archives at realmnetwork.com, it would be nice that they could see that not only in the numbers, but maybe seeing that the Amazon sales related to our show were at least consistent throughout the holidays. Obviously, I expect a big drop. I'd be surprised if anybody did it, but I do have to ask. It helps to let them know that people are still discovering the show, or at least going out there to sample it and say, I did hear these episodes with Eric, but who is Tony? What's going on here? And they might be interested to check that out.
Yeah.
And if you want to hear Eric's episodes, they are 98, 155, get a pen, 164, 166, 173, 179, 182, where you can learn about Eric because we don't talk about comics at all in that episode, 185, which is part one of a two-part discussion of the recent Batman story, The War of Jokes and Riddles. Do you remember the episode of your show that was part two of that?
I think it's 127, I want to say.
Okay. That was a true industry crossover right there.
Yeah.
Episode 190, Eric started to talk about Rose City Comic Con before he dedicated an entire long box review to it. So that's almost like a crossover right there. And then episode 192, we had the podcast Trinity of you, me, and Peter Rios, your co-host on the Legion Project.
The Legion Project, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So go find those episodes, if nothing else, folks.
And if people would like, they could go to longboxreview.com and click the appearances button on the page, and I have all those episodes listed as well. Okay. So, George, shall we talk about Christmas? Some Christmas comics?
Yeah, let's do it, man. This was really fun. I had a good time with this. I really did.
All right, so we've each chosen a few comics that we're going to talk about, and I will let my guest go first. George, what is your first comic that you want to talk about?
All right, first of all, let's set the ground rules here for everybody. These are comics from the past. Nothing that's out now, right?
Yes.
Okay. And by the past, it could be last year or decades ago, and anywhere in between. As anybody could tell from the spiel I gave you before we started this discussion right now, I'm a little long-winded, and I apologize for that, but I will go as quickly as I can here. I am not as organized as Eric is. When Eric and I were discussing recording this episode, he sent me a screen print of the software that he uses. I don't know what you use, Eric, to maintain any sort of semblance of organization of your comic collection. And I was very impressed by that. I used to be that way too, before I moved from New York to Virginia. When I was in New York, I could tell you what box had whatever in it. Now that I've been in Virginia all these years, I don't know where anything is. So I started to panic.
It's like you live in the wilderness, George.
Yeah, well, boxes, a wilderness of boxes is what it, long boxes, which have not been reviewed in a while. You see what I did there?
Mm.
I got nervous that I wouldn't be able to find a Christmas comic, a holiday-themed comic older than last year. I happened to be at my local comic shop, went through their dollar bin, and I saw an issue of Fantastic Four, Volume 2, number 4, that had a Christmas-themed cover. And I said, "Oh, this is perfect. I'm gonna pick this up. I don't have this. I never read this. This will be new to me, and this fits. And in case I can't find my stuff, at least I've got one." Eric, I was bamboozled. And that might be a theme from my Christmas comics for this show. Now, I was as a kid. Were you a fan of the Archie Christmas grab bag or whatever it used to be called, and the Betty Veronica stocking stuffer or whatever it was called, or the old Disney Christmas compilations that would come out?
I was aware of them, but I never actually got to read any.
Either type, the Archie or the Disney?
No.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting to hear. I used to love that.
I was a poor boy from Idaho who didn't have any money to buy comics until he was much older.
Well, the funny thing is, when I did go through my own boxes, and I'm jumping ahead here a little bit, what did I find? I found Archie's, and I found the Disney stuff. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put that aside. Let me see what else I could find. I kept digging, and I found some of those old DC holiday specials, the ones from the 80s. They still do them now, but the ones from the 80s. And I said to myself, you know what? I'll bet you Eric might pull one of these out. I'm going to see if I could dig a little deeper and find something else. So I did find other things, but I would like to start with the Fantastic Four story, if I may. Now, I've got notes here. In fact, where the heck are they? Sorry, Eric. Oh, there they are. Labeled page 1. Okay. Fantastic Four, Volume 2, Number 4. This was that part of the time where Onslaught attacked all the heroes, and they had the Heroes Reborn thing going on.
Yeah.
The funny thing was, on issue number 4 of the Fantastic Four, the Heroes Reborn logo wasn't up there. So I guess they didn't keep that logo very long like they're doing, say, with Rebirth right now.
Oh, okay.
I was a little surprised about that. That wasn't the case. The cover date is February 1997, the 90s, with Jim Lee plotting and penciling, Brendan Choi doing the script, and Scott Williams on inks. And it's got a cover by Will am I pronouncing his name right? Will Sportico? That's how I always pronounce it. I mean, it's probably pronounced differently.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
All right. Now, okay, Eric, this is where I got bamboozled. Okay, you ready for this? The Invisible Woman's on the cover. It's a Totals 90s objectification of women. She's there in a Santa Claus outfit that's so low cut. and she's in the foreground. And there's a Christmas tree in the background. Mr. Fantastic's decorating the tree. The thing's got a big bag of goodies on his back. There is nothing in this comic book that has to do with Christmas. Not a one. But I kept it on my list because it had the Christmas cover. And I wanted to show that I got bamboozled. So this is like Thank You 90s. Okay, this is not only is it a Fantastic Four comic that teases that there might be something to do with Christmas in it, but it's a late 90s Heroes Reborn Fantastic Four issue. Even though it doesn't have anything to do with Christmas, I am briefly going to talk about it because some of the things in here just are, I don't know if it's typical 90s. This is about the time where I was going cold turkey on comics. I was in the period we were engaged. We weren't married yet. I had stopped reading diligently probably a year or two prior. And at this point in my life, I really wasn't reading at all. So this is my cold turkey period. I never read any of the Heroes Reborn stuff. Did you ever get into that stuff?
I totally missed all that. I was aware of it, but I wasn't reading a whole lot of Marvel comics at that time. And so, yeah, I totally missed it. So I'm anxious to hear what you have to say about this.
I'm not quite sure you missed anything. Well, I'm going to make it fast since it really isn't Christmas themed except for the cover. And, I'm looking all over. Can you show me a wreath? Something. Candles. Anything that has to do with the holidays. You teased me on the cover, and I realized they had nothing. So, again, bamboozled. Thank you, 90s. Thank you, Marvel. No wonder you guys almost went bankrupt. Something really bad happens on page 1 in Wakanda. Ooh, Wakanda. Well, kind of topical these days with the Black Panther movie coming up. Mm-hmm. Then you turn the page, and 14-year-old girls are going gaga over Johnny Storm's body and his celebrity, but mostly his body. And these 14-year-old girls, if he didn't say, I'm being chased by 14-year-old girls a la the Beatles in A Hard Day's Night, I wouldn't have guessed that they were supposed to be depicted as 14-year-old girls. Just saying. Okay.
You said this was written by Jim Lee, right?
And pencils.
Yeah.
He plotted it and he penciled it.
Oh, he plotted. Okay.
Brandon Choi did the script.
Okay.
And where is Johnny Storm being attacked by these totally objectified himself by these 14-year-old girls? He's in a toy store called Toy Biz. Thank you, 90s. Anyway, yeah. Toy Biz, if anybody knows, that's the company that... so what was the deal? I know they put out the toys for Marvel, but wasn't that an affiliate of Marvel's at the time? Or something was going on?
So, maybe?
Well, they got product placement. Let's just put it that way.
No doubt.
And of course, before he can escape on his motorcycle, which he had ridden to the store, he sees the emergency flare in the sky. So he flames on and he flies off, leaving his bike behind. I don't know why he would leave his motorcycle behind, but he flames on and he flies off. Based on comments from citizens and a scene with the Thing. These are my notes. I'm reading my notes, but I wasn't 100% sure this was part of the whole Heroes Reborn saga. But I was putting it all together based on it was issue number 4 of the Fantastic Four, the timing of it, plus comments from citizens and a scene with the Thing where he doesn't know Alicia Masters very well yet. Like he's trying to find her because they met in a previous issue and he wants to ask her out on a date, but he's shy or something like that. And he thinks he sees her on the side of the road while he's in a car being driven by their lackey. I forgot what his name was. And he's not used to his Thing rock-like body, so he can't open the door to the car. So he busts out of the car in it was a beautiful two-page splash. Again, penciled by Jim Lee, inked by Scott Williams. So it's a beautiful picture of the Thing wrecking this car. And of course, it's not Alicia Masters that he thinks he sees on the street. But this woman, whether she's starstruck or she thinks the Thing is really, really hot, starts hitting on the Thing and wants to give him her number. And of course, he's embarrassed because it's not the woman he thought it was. And of course, he just wrecked the car. Apparently not the first car he's wrecked since he's been the Thing. And he goes off and she says, well, call me. In today's climate of,
this sounds very weird.
Yeah, but it's so totally 90s. Oh God. Okay, I'll tell you what. I guess there is a holiday themed moment in here because while Johnny was at Toy Biz, he bought Fantastic Four themed action figures.
Of course.
And on the roof of the Baxter building, where Sue is waiting for them, the Invisible Woman, I guess she was called the Invisible Woman in this version of the Fantastic Four, she is the one who set off the flare as a test because they are new to their powers here. This is that new Heroes Reborn world. So she's testing them out because they need to operate as a team as efficiently as possible. And she didn't like the time that it took both Ben and Johnny to get to the building. He explained that he was over at Toy Biz buying those licensed toys, and there are 2 of him. One in his regular blue costume and one in his new combat mode red costume that Sue comments on and says, why is your costume red? And he said, well, you got to wear a red costume so you can have an extra action figure.
Oh my gosh.
But now back to our story.
Oh my gosh.
But that might be the only thing holiday themed here because there's a toy.
Okay.
He didn't say he was buying it for Franklin or I don't think Valeria existed back then, but it's not like he was buying them for kids or the Toys for Tots. He was buying them because he's an action figure collector. All right.
As one does.
As one might do. Right.
George, this is like the anti-Christmas comic.
I'm telling you. And again, mind you, the cover, a sexified invisible girl on the cover, and the other guy's in the back, and you at least think you're going to see something Christmassy going on in here. Not a thing. Ugh. All right. Now, an object emerged from a stellar anomaly while the 4 of them were embarked on the test flight that gave them their powers. This object, of course, has been tracked to have landed in the jungles of Wakanda.
Hmm.
And of course, Sue Storm knows T'Challa, or I guess I'll find out finally how to properly pronounce his name when I have the movie, because he has done work with the Storm Foundation, whatever that is in the Heroes Reborn world. So Sue knows King T'Challa from Wakanda. There's also a mystery man looking for Reed, culminating in a meeting between him, Johnny, and Ben, where there's a close-up of the Thing's eyes, and he goes, "Holy cow, you!" But we never find out who that person is in issue number 4. So it's one of those devices, everybody uses it. Not quite sure who that person winds up being. I'm not going to seek this out, trust me. Although art is beautiful, like that 2-page spread I told you about, the Thing busting out of the car, and something else we're going to get to really, really soon. The art's beautiful, but I'm not quite sure I could read through this. So again, I'm not quite sure you missed anything, Heroes Reborn-wise. Again, this is supposed to be a holiday-themed comic. Nothing holiday, right? Not a thing. Not a thing. You know what? I am just going to skip through all these notes here. Basically, our heroes find the area where whatever this object is has landed, but somebody has beat them to it. Who is it? An evil version of Wyatt Wingfoot. And he's evil because he's standing there smoking a cigarette, and he looks ominous. But he's not collecting this object for himself. He's collecting it for the boss. Well, of course, the Black Panther, Mr. Fantastic, and the Invisible Woman fall victim to a trap, and Wyatt Wingfoot decides, rather than leave them behind or outright kill them, let's bring them to the boss along with whatever the object is. And who is that boss? On a beautiful 2-page spread that you have to turn the book sideways so you can see the full glory of the 2-page spread. Spoiler, Dr. Doom.
Of course.
Which is probably his first appearance in this Heroes Reborn world.
Okay.
So what did we learn here, Eric? So we learned that you can't judge a book by its cover. It can get truer than that. And the 90s can really hornswoggle you, I think. I'm going to end this on a fun note, though. I think I was paying attention to the ads. There were a lot of video game ads at the time, and they were 16-bit, not 8-bit. They were 16-bit. So there was right there on the inside front cover, War of the Gems for your Super NES, which is basically the Infinity War.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There was a Hulk Pantheon saga for PlayStation from a company called Eidos. I don't know how you pronounce that. EIDOS.
Mm-hmm.
There was so first of all, did you play any of these games that I just mentioned?
No, I as I mentioned, where I couldn't buy a lot of comics when I was a kid, nor could I afford any video games.
Yeah, and I wasn't really a big video game player myself. There was another video game, NFL Game Day 97, with beautiful 16-bit graphics that any kid today would laugh at if they saw it.
That's retro now, George. That's probably
That's
in.
very retro. Well, actually, yeah, they might get into that. But anyway, that is my Christmas-themed comic, and I will send you pictures so you can post them on your site to show you how easily I got fooled that Fantastic Four #4 Volume 2 was going to be a Christmas-themed comic. And it was going to be a fun Christmas-themed comic. But no. Now, your listeners are probably saying, all right, George, once you realized, I mean, it's not like you just read these books today.
Right.
Once you realized that this book had nothing to do with Christmas, why didn't you just get another comic to read? It's not like we don't have decades and decades worth of holiday comics. Plus, I just admitted I could have at least gone to last year's if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be funnier to just leave my original list intact and just have everybody share my pain. That's really all it was.
You just want to share the pain.
That's really all it was. Plus, I want people to see the cover of this book and tell me and tell you via the feedback you may receive, would they have been fooled too? If this was on the newsstand in 97, I mean, unless they thumb through it, maybe. But it's very easy to be fooled by this book that it was going to be Christmas themed. It came out in December of that 96, I guess. So, that why wouldn't you think that there was going to be something holiday-ish in there? Even snow. Can we get some snow?
Yeah.
I'm in the jungles of Wakanda. There's no snow there. Eric, what's your first book?
Well, actually, my first book has snow on the cover. Mm-hmm. And not only does it have snow, it has a Christmas wreath.
Oh, see, that's what I wanted, man.
And the word Christmas actually appears on it. This is The New Adventures of Superboy number 39.
Oh, nice.
Showing George on the video feed here so he can see it.
Gil Kane cover?
That is a Gil Kane cover.
Nice.
This is...
I've never read that one. I can tell you right now, I've never read that one.
I hadn't read it until I pulled it out for this episode, George. I have a full collection of the New Adventures of Superboy. I had read the first, I don't know, dozen or 15 issues back when it was first published. Mm-hmm. And then I dropped the title all those years ago, and then I got a hankering to read some more New Adventures of Superboy, and I ended up getting the whole lot of it. And this is one of the new ones that I hadn't read before.
Oh.
This was published. I did according to, I think Mike's Amazing World of Comics. That's where I got this information, but I got the on sale date instead of the cover date. This was published on or around December 30th, 1982.
Oh, okay.
The story is titled A World Without Christmas. This is by Paul Kupperberg, Kurt Schaffenberger, Ben Oda, and Jerry Serpe. And as you noted, the cover by Gil Kane. So,
okay, now I've got to know. You're gonna say the same thing that happened to me, right? You got bamboozled, and it had nothing to do with Christmas, even though they put it in the title, right?
Well, along the way, I'm thinking, what is this story really about? It's a weird thing. It's kind of a mashup of It's a Wonderful Life with a bit of a Charlie Brown Christmas thrown in too.
Oh, cool. One thing I want to ask before you get into it, and one thing I forgot to mention about my comic, which I want to talk about for all our comics. This one from 97 had a cover price of $195. What's the cover price on yours? You said 82?
60 cents.
82, you said, right?
Yeah, not from 1982. Yeah.
Okay, folks, let's keep an eye on the years and the prices.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. So like I said, It's a Wonderful Life with Charlie Brown, Christmas thrown in. So, fellow Smallvillian Bashford,
I'm not too familiar with Superboy lore. Is that a well-known Superboy character, Bashford?
I'm gonna guess. I remember the character, or I remember encountering the character. I think in those first issues that I read.
Okay.
But honestly, when I read through this particular issue, I couldn't tell you. When I first opened the page and saw this character there, I couldn't tell you who it was. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of suspecting maybe that it was a character made for this particular run of comics. Mm. But he goes to Smallville High. I think I got the sense that he kind of picks on Clark Kent a little bit, but he is actually visiting the Kent home at it's Christmas Eve. Because his parents are away, they're traveling somewhere for something. And so Bash is a little down on Christmas. He complains about the commercialism. That's where I get the Charlie Brown Christmas part in it, right? And he's complaining about the plastic this and that of Christmas. In fact, he says, when I was a kid, stop me if you've heard this, George, or some variation of this. When I was a kid, it was different. Christmas meant something.
If he tells Mom and Pa Kent to get off his lawn, I don't know where this is going to go.
Well, he does. Lana Lang is over as well, and she's trying to cheer him up, and stands below the mistletoe and makes some sort of coy comment about, well, look where I'm standing, Bash. Just trying to lighten the mood, and he angrily grabs the plastic mistletoe from the ceiling and breaks it in two in front of her, and It's just like, what, this kid is way too cynical and a tad violent for being a high schooler in Smallville. So he runs off. He wants to be alone. And Clark, good old Clark Kent, he tells his folks and Lana that he's going to go out there and try and talk to Bash and calm him down and stuff. But instead he changes into Superboy and flies off to find Bash and says, "Hey, I was on patrol and I saw you out here, Bash. What's going on?" As Superboy does. And so when Bash is telling Superboy his complaints about Christmas, Superboy gets the brilliant idea of taking Bash somewhere where Christmas does not exist so that he could learn the value of Christmas.
I see.
And so Superboy takes Bash to a parallel Earth.
To Bedford Falls?
Well, that's where I thought we were going with this, with some sort of version of It's a Wonderful Life. And but it's kind of like the dark mirror image of It's a Wonderful, well, not really. It actually is like that. Now that I think about it, because things, they arrive on this Earth, whatever Earth it is. It doesn't give a number. But Superboy does, reference his recent journey and visit to Earth 2.
Oh.
And I think the previous 30 issues or something like that. So I'm looking forward to reading that.
Okay, cool.
Finding out about that. But there's no like footnote or just a plain old editor's caption box saying this is Earth blah blah blah, whatever it is. It's just they goes to this other Earth. Oh, that's the other thing. Because Superboy has has visited Earth 2. Apparently he's been just going off into the multiverse, exploring all these places. He had to have, because how else would he have known that this particular Earth existed without a Christmas? Right?
I see. Was that a theme of that series, that he was traveling all over the place, or you don't know?
The first I'd ever heard of it. So
okay. I
wonder if I am really curious now if the Earth 2 visit and this are the only times he ever goes to a parallel Earth. I'll be reading the entire series wanting him to go to parallel Earths, and he's not going to do it. So, I'm just wondering, so what? Superboy has time to just fly around cataloging all these parallel Earths until he finds one like this?
That's why his grades are down.
That's why Lex Luthor's still on the loose.
That's why Lex Luthor is smarter than him.
That's true. Very true. So he takes Bash there. They encounter the locals. They encounter that Earth's version of Clark Kent. And Bash makes a comment about how Clark Kent is a wimp on this Earth too. Or I should say this Earth as well. And along the way, they get separated. And as Superboy's trying to find him, Superboy encounters Pa Kent. And essentially finds out that this world that they live in, greed and hatred have taken their toll. This is Pa Kent telling him this. Violence is the only thing people understand now. And I thought, when I first read that, George, I'm thinking, this sounds way too uncomfortably familiar to me.
Yep.
And, I'm sure people back in 82 were thinking the same thing, but, it's just really funny how things...
35 years later, not much has changed, I guess.
Not much has changed, right?
And even that comic from 97 with how people are dressed and depicted, not much has changed. We think it's bad, but it's always been this way.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a shame,
The more things change, the more they stay the same. So, and there's even this weird offhand comment from one of the characters who actually attacked Superboy and Bash at the beginning of the story because they're outsiders, right? And so it's like, every man for him or herself, every man or woman for him or herself. And, it's just like it's literally a dog eat dog world. And, so, they get away, like I said, but there's this offhand comment made about, a war that was never resolved in the story. And even, so the character makes this comment. Superboy's like, what war is this? And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you've been here before, Superboy. What is the deal? But apparently it was just a quick, hey, New Earth, I'm Superboy, and then he left. I don't know, maybe.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, so there's apparently no police. It's mob rule on this world. About the war thing. It's interesting because Bash actually makes a reference to Vietnam earlier in the story before they go to this other Earth. So that tells you approximately when the New Adventures of Superboy was set at that time anyway.
Right.
But anyway, so despite the fact that there's no police and it's mob rule, certain people of the society preach peace and brotherhood. And the group in Smallville is led by a certain person. The person is the pollution is so bad on this Earth, George, that they have to wear gas masks, which is a huge plot contrivance for what comes up here. So Superboy ends up finding Bash. It was this other person, the leader who brought him inside one of the buildings to protect him from the mob. And in payment, in return for them helping him, Bash decides to teach them a Christmas carol. So Superboy hears this singing and he's like, wait a minute, there's no Christmas here. What's going on? So he goes in the room and Bash is just saying, hey, because they helped me, I decided to repay them like this. There was no, speaking strictly from a storytelling standpoint, George, there was no character turn whatsoever. It's just like literally he's there. There's no Christmas. He's saved. There's Christmas in Bash's heart, So it's just there's a lot they had to do in these 15 or so pages. I understand that, but so and then here's the two toppers with it, because Superboy helped them with this mob and everything and kept them safe because they were actually found by the mob and they were all going to be attacked and presumably killed. Superboy dug a hole underneath the building and brought them all down to protect them because they didn't want Superboy, because they're all about peace. They didn't want Superboy to fight the group.
Okay.
Which, admirable.
Yeah.
But because Superboy helped them on this particular day, George, can you guess what day this is on this parallel world?
July 12th.
Good guess. Good guess.
December 25th.
December 25th. And then we also find out that the leader of the Peace and Brotherhood group in Smallville is none other than that world's Bash Bashford. And thus, the world is safe again.
And an angel got his wings. And when Superboy got good old Bash Bashford back to Smallville, we find out his grandfather is none other than Mr. Potter.
Oh.
Now,
I would have enjoyed that story, George.
You held up a copy of the cover, the Gil Kane cover. Can you describe to everybody what was going on that cover?
Yeah, so Superboy is flying overhead and he's being attacked with snowballs. People are throwing snowballs
and snowballs, right? Those are the two weaknesses.
Yeah. Yeah. And he just wants to put the Christmas wreath somewhere, George. That's all. And he's what does he get in payment? Snowballs in the face.
That's right. Well, at least he had Christmas in his comic. That's all I have to say.
A lot of it too. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of fun. A lot of DC comics of the time had backups. Did that have a backup or no?
Good eye there, George, or good supposition. Yes, there was a new Dial H for Hero adventure in here.
Oh, really? Dial H?
I actually did not read.
Okay, no problem. Interesting to see the pairing that they would do back then.
Yeah. I doubt it's Christmas themed, though. It doesn't look like it as I flip through it. But since we're on the subject, the two characters that the Dial H for Hero folks turn into,
are
Rock and Roll, and I'll show George on the video feed here. That's Rock and Roll, George.
You're going to have to put a picture of that along with the episode. Who drew that? I'm trying. It looks like familiar drawing. I mean, Is it like a Kurt Swan type of thing, or who did that?
It says Bender.
Oh, okay.
They're only doing last names here, so I'm not
Okay,
familiar
not
with
sure
that.
that
It's Bender and Giella as far as pencils and inks.
Okay. That sounded like a fun one.
Yeah, it was interesting to go through, that's for sure.
I was going to call an audible here with my second one and kind of flip-flop my two that I have remaining, the two main ones that I'm going to discuss. But I think I'm going to stick with my original order, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your number 2?
My number 2 is an issue of Brave and the Bold, Volume 1, number 184. Had a cover date of March 1982, so I guess it was out around the holidays of 81. That one had a cover price, I've got it right here, had a cover price of 60 cents also, because it came out right around the time of your Superboy issue. It was written by Mike W. Barr, with art and cover art by Jim Aparo, one of my favorite Batman artists.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the colorist was Adrian Roy. And I don't know if I said this already, but it is Batman and the Huntress. I used to love team-up books. I think you and I have talked about this on your show and on my show, that the Marvel team-up books, the DC team-up books were among my favorites. They came out at the right time in my comic reading career. And sadly, in 16 short months, this series would end at number 200. Just like another great series, which might happen to be a podcast, but is that a coincidence? I think not. So unlike the Fantastic Four issue that, again, hornswoggled me, that had a title of In the Heart of Darkness, this issue's title is The Batman's Last Christmas. So I figured it was pretty safe that this would be a Christmas-themed issue, and it was. And this is one that I found when I was digging around in my boxes. It was a random find. It was in no order. It was by itself. It wasn't with my other Brave and the Bold, so I got pretty lucky that I found it.
Luck or fate, George?
There you go, Eric. There you go. On the cover, there is a snow-covered ground. Batman is in front of the grave sites of his parents. He is taking off his cape and cowl. And he is yelling, "My parents deserve to die, and the Batman must die as well." And the Huntress is watching from behind another gravestone behind him. In horror. Dun, dun, dun. All right. As anybody who read comics in this time knows, Batman was depicted a lot differently pre-crisis than he is depicted now. So some of the things here might sound a little odd to some of you. Some of them might be refreshing nostalgia. Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, the logos for the heroes on these team-up books, I must say that the Batman logo on this book in particular is one of my favorite Batman logos. So not only is Jim Aparo one of my favorite Batman artists, but that logo that they had on here, and again, Eric, I'll provide you pictures of all these things so you can post them if you'd like. Almost in parallel to what you said about Earth 2, the Huntress from Earth 2 comes to visit Batman on Earth 1 for the holidays. Oh, and I guess I should say that the opening page of this issue, unlike the one in the Fantastic Four, where an atrocity occurred in the Wakandan jungle, this one has Batman making a special Christmas delivery anonymously at an orphanage. So again, you're at Christmas time, right here. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the Huntress comes from Earth 2 to Earth 1 for the holidays. She came to see Uncle Bruce.
Yes. Uncle, I love that she did that back then. Mm-hmm. That, this guy who to her is her dad, but it's not her dad.
Right.
And so, yeah, Uncle Bruce, I always love that.
I'm going to make the assumption that, unlike my show, your listeners know what we're talking about with Earth 1, Earth 2, and I'm not going to go into any of that because they're probably more well-versed in that than I am anyway. My show, I would have to at least give some sort of cursory explanation as to what was going on. I know I don't have to do that here. And if anybody does have a question, they can always ask you because you're the authority and I am not. But let me tell you something, Eric. There was something quaint and of its time in the multiple Earths concept from those pre-crisis days that I miss today. I really do. I mean, I love all these crossovers and stuff. I'm not reading Metal because Peter Rios is reading it for me and he's breaking it down, and I don't have to. I don't have to read it.
That's right.
I am reading the Doomsday Clock, but I'm not reading Metal. But the fact that Helena is the right way to pronounce that, right? Her name.
That's how I pronounce it. Yeah.
Just the fact that
although George, I actually worked with a woman who spelled her name the same way, but she pronounced it Helena.
Really?
So I don't know.
Okay. Well, I think mostly I'm going to call her the Huntress here, but just for everybody's sanity. But the fact that she comes from Earth 2 doesn't seem to faze Bruce at all, because with the way they meet in the middle, he's in the middle of dealing with a thug, and she just happens to show up in her Huntress costume. It doesn't shock him at all. So this whole thing that the two Earths are really more like different counties in the same state, and somebody can just come over over the line. It just doesn't seem to faze him, and that's another thing that I like about the whole concept. I also realized how much I miss thought balloons.
Oh, right.
Well, and especially in a comic where somebody's trying to solve a mystery. There's something about seeing the thought balloon rather than having the caption. I don't know why. The same words could be in a thought balloon as in a caption, but for some reason I prefer the thought balloon. So that's an age thing. That's a generational thing, I think.
Yeah.
So I miss those things. Batman has to retrieve some stolen financial documents regarding mob activity from, you guessed it, a thug dressed as Santa Claus.
Of course,
with the papers in his satchel of goodies. Now, they couldn't have thrown a Santa Claus in that darn Fantastic Four issue all those years later, but I digress. The thug, this is what I love, again, the thought balloons. He thinks like he speaks. Merry Christmas, Batman. You're last, and "your" is spelled Y-E-R in his thought balloon, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another thing I love. Of course, he quickly dispatches of this thug, and he sees evidence in the paperwork that his father, Thomas Wayne, loaned money to Spurs Sanders so he could become a mob boss. Could this be true? Dun, dun, dun.
Tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
He seemingly confirms this evidence, and he decides he would be a hypocrite if he continued fighting crime as Batman in his father's name and to avenge his and his mother's murder. So, of course, what does he do, Eric? He gives up the mantle of the Batman in dramatic fashion by removing his cape and cowl, as he did on the cover, in front of the gravesites of his parents.
Yeah. Well, at least the cover is representative of the contents, George.
And, I'd like to say I do miss that part of comics, that a panel essentially is recreated as the cover is a larger image with maybe more detail. But I guess I might be a little 50-50 on that. But I think that's quaint. Mm-hmm. And I guess I think that's quaint because I was a kid when I was reading stuff like this. So I guess that's why I feel that way. As opposed to having everybody dressed in Christmas outfits on the cover of your book and not have anything to do with Christmas on the inside of the book. Thank you, Marvel in the 90s. Anyway. The Huntress sees this as a parallel to her own father, like you described, Eric, because the Batman of Earth 2 gave up the mantle when her mother, Catwoman, died. We're not giving out spoilers here to concepts that are 30 years old. I'm not afraid of that right now.
And no longer in continuity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, she's haunted by the fact that events may repeat themselves on these two Earths. I guess that's a known fact. Now that all these people are going back and forth on all these Earths, one of the things she's worried about is, could the same thing that happened on my Earth happen here, just in a different way? Mm-hmm. Right? As luck would have it, everything, it's a one issue, one and done, like they were back in those days. Everything gets nicely resolved. I'm not going to go into the details of it. But when does it get resolved, Eric? Like you asked me the date that your story was resolved. This one is resolved on December 24th, mm-hmm. Christmas Eve. And as the mystery is solved, Thomas Wayne's integrity is intact, and Bruce rededicates his life to fighting crime as Batman.
Until the next time he finds out something bad about his parents.
Right.
He does it again.
Now, again, here are the things that I love about going back to these old comics like this. A, the holidays. B, instead of everyone in the shared universe having attitude and being treated more like anti-heroes, these characters are actually nice and respectful to each other. And especially in today's day and age, I find that very refreshing. It was something we took for granted back then. And now to see it, even having to reread something from 30 years ago to see it, I find it to be a refreshing jolt compared to the characterizations of some of our favorite characters that we've known all these years. I like to go back to that. Now, some people say, the writing was simplistic, the characterization was simplistic. I mean, what really happened in that book? I'll tell you what happened in that book. Characters that we knew were involved in an adventure. It happened to wrap up in one issue, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. Not every story has to have a great impact on a character's life. It could just be a tale of there's a problem, let's solve it, it gets solved, we move on. Somebody doesn't have to die, a universe doesn't have to be destroyed, a new villain doesn't have to come out of it because of some sort of a loss. We don't need that every time we read a comic book. Sometimes we just need a fun story. And now you can get off my lawn. Much like your comic, this comic had a backup, and the backup was Nemesis. Are you familiar with Nemesis?
Oh, I am, yeah.
Okay, this seemed like it was the maybe last chapter of however many part story, because we were definitely in the middle of a battle sequence. Mm-hmm. I'm not that familiar with Nemesis. Looked like he was a little MacGyver-like in the way he did things. He was able to take things that you didn't think could get him out of a situation, and it got him out of that situation.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
But anyway, I was really unfamiliar with the character, but I read the story, and it was fun. It wrapped up whatever story that they were telling about Nemesis. May I tell you about some of the ads in the book, since it was holiday time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, and another thing that I miss about comics from that age. So this is not only a holiday-themed episode, but it's a nostalgia episode.
Well, it's perfect for Christmas.
Yeah, you know something? That's right. I mean, I'm sitting by the tree. The fire's going. I've got some cocoa. The Yule log is happening. Eric, do you miss continued on second page following captions like I do?
I kind of do, yeah. I also miss page numbers on the page.
Yes, it was refreshing to see that too. Okay, so here are some of the ads. Again, it was the holidays. Model cars were heavily advertised in this issue, just like video games were heavily advertised in that Fantastic Four issue I told you about. Mm-hmm. There was a Bubble Yum ad with Jack Davis art. And I remember Jack Davis art in those Bubble Yum ads. And I knew who Jack Davis was thanks to Mad Magazine back then.
Ah, okay.
Oh, and in the ad, there was a maze. And there was an entry for great prizes, including a Panasonic Regivision with VCR and sound camera.
Yeah.
That was a grand prize. Okay, now we have ads for Heroes World Discount Comic and Book Club. And what they had for sale, they had Marvel Fanfare #1. It was solicited as a 32-page goodie on slick paper, published bi-monthly. The first 4 issues feature Spider-Man and the X-Men team-up, $1.50 each. Ooh, what a bargain. Then you had that Hulk and Batman Treasury Edition, $2.50. Oh, man, if they could put something together that was that good back then for $2.50, Then Marvel Graphic Novel #1 was coming out at the time, The Death of Captain Marvel, $5.95. They advertised action figures. Here you go, Eric, here for your Christmas list back then. Chips, John, Ponch, the Sarge, and Superfoe, or the Dukes of Hazzard, Bo, Luke, Daisy, Boss Hogg, and Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane. And of course, the first pyramid scheme for kids, Grit.
Grit, yeah.
Grit help you start your own business. There's one other ad in here that I've got to talk about real quick. And I know I'm monopolizing this, and I apologize. I took so many notes. I never take this many notes on these books. There was a Hostess Twinkies ad in here. And the Hostess Twinkies ad was an Aquaman-related one. Eric, when I saw this ad, not only did I smile, but I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I'm going to tell you why. I had the opportunity to buy that original artwork for that ad.
Really?
Mm-hmm. But it was out of my. I was working at the time. This is before I got laid off. It was an auction, but it had the opportunity for a buy now, and the buy now price was, I'm thinking of $400. I don't mind saying the price. That was too steep for my blood, but I considered it, and I sat there with my finger over the enter button so long. And again, this was a time when I hadn't gotten laid off yet. Financial things that happened to me since then didn't happen, but I still couldn't justify $400 for a page of art, even though a hostess, I know what you and I both know, and everybody listening knows, that original artwork is rare because there are only so many hostess ads, whether they're DC or Marvel characters.
Right.
To this day, that is one of those regrets that I have. And in fact, on our 200th episode, Greg Schiegel asked if we had any regrets. I wish I had thought of that, even though it's not show related. That is one of my stupid regrets in life. I mean, how stupid to even think of it all this time later. But I saw that ad. I opened my eyes wide. I'm like, oh my God, I had an opportunity to have that original artwork.
That's incredible.
Oh, man.
Until you just mentioned that, I'm like, well, I never even thought that there would be original art pages of those ads.
Yes,
I don't know why, but it's obvious. I mean, it's a comic page selling Twinkies or whatever, right? So,
and I wasn't seeking it out. I was at an auction site, but I was just kind of thumbing through stuff. I don't know how I got to a page where it was out of my price range so much, but I guess, all these pages just pop up, and I saw it and I was like, oh my God, when else are you going to have this opportunity? But you also have to have $400 at spare cash, which, I didn't have at the time. So yeah, that was one of those could have, should have, and it probably would have been sitting in a portfolio anyway, not on a wall where it would have deserved to have been. But to have said that I had it, for people like us and your listeners, it's like a sense of pride knowing that you own that.
Yeah.
And all these years later, it's a stupid regret that I have. And when I saw it, it just brought it all back, and I got that feeling in my stomach, like, oh, I remember what it felt like. Like, should I? Shouldn't I? You shouldn't. Don't be an idiot. Don't do it. Yeah, man. Good times, Eric. Good times.
So, George, I have this issue as well. In fact, I have a couple copies of this issue because my original copy had a torn cover.
Wait, the one that I just talked about?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, I was just glancing at my notes. I know I keep interrupting you, but I got to tell you this one other thing, man. One other thing. Hold that thought. I've got to compare Bruce Wayne to Ralphie in A Christmas Story when he's online for Santa Claus and the kid in the aviator goggles tries to talk to him. And he says, shut up, I'm thinking. He doesn't want to talk to the kid. He's got to think about what he's going to say to Santa. So he says, I'm thinking. Well, Batman pulls the same stunt on the Huntress. They get back from, I don't know, trying to put a heavy hand on the mobster or whatever they were trying to do. They're back at Wayne Manor in front of the Christmas tree, out of costume. And Helena's trying to talk to Bruce, and he goes, hush, Helena, I need to concentrate. And then he starts remembering something from his past when he was a kid in front of the Christmas tree. But his scolding of her, A, is inappropriate, and B, reminded me of Ralphie in that particular case. So I just had to bring that up, man. I'm sorry. You go on. It's your show. I'm sorry.
What was I saying?
Got multiple copies of that Brave and the Bold number 184.
Right. So this copy that I have pulled out and have been looking at as you've been talking.
Oh, you were following?
I was, yes. And I've only gotten in probably the last couple of years, but I just want to point out one thing that I thought was really cool at the very end of the story, George. There's this roll of paper drawn on the page with these baby cherubs below a candle and whatnot, but it has all these signatures that says "Merry Christmas" from the DC staff, and it has all this, Jeanette Kahn, Dick Giordano, Paul Levitz, Karen Berger, all the way down. Len Wein's on here. It's just really cool to see the people who behind the comics that we love.
Right.
And I remember seeing this before. I think it was something they did, maybe not every year, but occasionally.
Mm.
Or maybe I'm just thinking of this particular issue because this issue of Batman and Huntress and Brave and the Bold, for some reason, I really like this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I, whenever I think about Christmas comics, this is actually one of the first ones I think of.
Really?
Just, because for some reason it has resonated with me through all these years.
Interesting. Wow.
So, yeah, I like that one. I like that a lot. Like you said, Jim Aparo Batman is it's lovely.
Yeah, there's something about it. I don't know. Again, maybe it's nostalgia. I mean, Neil Adams was also drawing Batman a little earlier and approximately at the same time. More realistic, that's for sure. I mean, if you were to compare the two styles, but there is something. Maybe I was just reading more titles drawn by Jim Aparo, so that was my Batman. Just like
same.
If you happen to discover Doctor Who in this incarnation, your Doctor is the 9th or the 10th. Whereas people who've known Doctor Who forever, their Doctor is the 3rd or the 4th, that kind of thing. It's all a matter when you discover something, I guess.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Batman, my next Christmas comic comes from Batman Family number 4. So we get another number 4 issue, George.
Oh, that's sweet.
So this was published on December 5th, 1975.
Ooh, what's the cover price on that?
That is a 50-cent cover price, but it's got it says giant. DC it's one of those DC giants. So I imagine it's like 100 pages or something.
Am I the only one who loved books like that? Because those were all kind of one and done, weren't they, if I recall correctly?
Well, I think perhaps. I'm not entirely sure because while I do have a certain amount of these Batman families, and I'll explain why in a minute, I haven't read a whole lot of them.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, I did not read this particular issue until, again, for this episode. So these are actually all, well, except for the last one. These are all new to me. No, wait, no, the last one is too. I didn't read that one either until just the other day. So
right, I just remember. I think because they were giant and double sized, and because they were thick and they had that logo, giant, special. And at the time, still relatively inexpensive. You could have 2 quarters on you and pick them up as a kid at the local 7-Eleven. I think I bought a lot of those when they were on the stand. And those I have fond memories of. Those super specials, even on the Marvel side too. King size issues of certain books. Those were always a lot of fun to read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, like I said, I got several of these, and I started getting them because there's a lot of solo Robin stories in them.
Oh, I see. Uh-huh.
And so the story that I chose out of this DC Giant Batman family has to do with Robin. Mm-hmm. And this is such a weird title, George. It's called Robin's White Very, in kind of quotes or parentheses. I remember. I have to look it up now.
Okay.
Christmas. So Robin's White Very Christmas
instead of Robin's Very White Christmas.
Yeah, literally that's what it says. And in fact, let me just go to it real quick here. Make sure. Oh yeah. So it is. It says so in blue text. It says at the bottom of this page, Robin's White Christmas. Okay. But then, using proofreaders' marks to indicate an insert between the words, it has the word above "very" in parentheses. So Robin's White Very Christmas. It's so that is I as a word person, as someone who works professionally as an editor,
that wouldn't have gotten by you.
That really bugs me. So I mean, at least they got the correct proofreaders' mark to for an insert. I'll give them that. But this story involves it opens up with Dick Grayson and his girlfriend Lori. This is the time when Dick is attending Hudson University. When he's first going off on his own. Him and Batman haven't broken up, I don't think, at this point. They haven't dissolved their partnership, but he's off on his own doing the university thing. And I know this character, his girlfriend Lori. I've heard of her. I've not read a whole lot about her or a whole lot of comics with her in it. So it was kind of neat to visit this story with her in it, because I just don't know a whole lot about her other than Dick dated this girl in college called Lori. And so, like I said, the story opens with Dick's kind of down in the dumps because there's a snowstorm coming, and he's afraid that the snow may cause him to miss the plane ride back to Gotham City, because he's going to go home and spend the holidays with Bruce and Alfred and Uncle, oh my gosh, Aunt Harriet. So this was the point where Aunt Harriet was actually in the comics.
Wow.
And, this is 1975. This is, well after the Batman TV series.
Yes. Huh.
So I thought that was interesting that she was still around.
I got to admit, I never realized Aunt Harriet made it into the Bat books, into the comics. Oh.
Yeah.
Which came first, though? Wasn't the TV show was first, or?
Oh, now that you say that, I'm not sure. I thought she was brought in for the TV show, and then they brought her in the comics, but maybe it was the other way around.
Well, I'm thinking the first way you just said it, that they created her for the TV show, and kind of like what they're doing today to make the comics reflect the other media rather than the other way around. Mm-hmm. They might have brought her in the books because now people had seen her on TV and they were watching her in reruns.
Yeah, maybe. I don't. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure somebody out there knows the answer to this off the top of their heads, and they can let us know. But
of course, we'll find out when Peter, your Legion Project co-host Peter Rios, and his own co-host Adam Murdo do their Crisis tapes for issue number 7 of Crisis on Infinite Earths, where Aunt Harriet meets an untimely demise as she tries to save Earth X.
She's one of the background characters where the wall of antimatter comes through.
And the funny thing is, I was talking to Murd and Peter because, I talk to them all the time, and they did say they were going to devote an entire Crisis episode to Aunt Harriet. So everybody be on the lookout.
I'm not sure about that one, George, but I guess we'll find out.
You know what? We may have inadvertently figured out the ending of Batman Metal.
I will pay you something if that ends up to being the case.
The big bad is Aunt Harriet.
Even remotely true.
The Batman who laughs is really Aunt Harriet.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
That would be so funny.
Somebody get on that.
Yeah. But before all that, back to the comic.
That's the Aunt Harriet derailment. See, if this were my show, that would be the title of the show now, the Aunt Harriet derailment.
Yeah. So, like I said, they're driving along somewhere, I guess, and like I said, Dick is lamenting the fact that he might miss his plane ride, and then they encounter this hitchhiking Santa, who turns out to be the Hudson University security chief, who apparently is a reoccurring character.
Okay, named Bash Bashford.
No, but his name is McDonald.
Oh.
Chief McDonald.
Oh, Chief McDonald.
Yes. So, but it turns out he needs a lift, because, and the reason he's dressed up as Santa is because he's helping the Hudson University Sidewalk Santas, go out into the community and collect money to buy gifts for the needy and the homeless in the area. Mm-hmm. So Dick and Lori, despite the fact that Dick is concerned about catching this plane, decides to help them out. That's a good thing, a good neighborly Christmas time thing to do, to volunteer time for a needy cause, for a good cause.
Exactly.
And so they've collected a certain amount of money, and they're about ready to head back to the Sidewalk Santa's HQ when Chief McDonald and Lori bop in to get some coffee to heat themselves up because they've been out in the snow, and someone knocks Dick down from behind and takes off with the sleigh that they had where they've been going around collecting this money. And so Dick decides, of course, that because he got the drop was made on him, that Robin has to investigate and help recover the money. So Robin shows up and Dick is gone because he got hit from behind, as Robin explains to Lori, standing in front of him. that he's put Dick away to rest and recuperate. Doesn't say where, of course. And then I thought this was really kind of neat, George. Security Chief McDonald asks about the inappropriate for winter costume that Robin wears. And then Robin makes this quip about, he could say something about wearing bat thermal underwear, which I thought was, that has to be a callback to the Batman TV show. Because I remember an episode specifically where they're getting prepared for an altercation with Mr. Freeze. And later in the episode, Batman is not fazed by Mr. Freeze because he's wearing bat thermal underwear. Anyway.
I used to get that every Christmas from my grandmother.
You had a great grandmother.
I tell you. Pajamas and bat thermal underwear.
Yeah. So then Robin, of course, being the protege of the Batman, quickly deduces that the thief will be going back to the student center, which is where they're all congregating with their contributions from the community. And so he goes there, confronts the thief and his two helpers, who pull out guns, because they're gonna steal all the dough. And then they get into this like 2 or 3 page fight between Robin and these robbers, with Robin throwing punny lines left and right, because he's still in that stage where, Robin's got to make the jokes. Anyway, he takes care of them. And afterwards, so then, Robin leaves, Dick comes back, and instead of, Laurie showing any kind of concern about what happened with him or Dick explaining anything, because we're running out of pages here. All Dick does is, again, complain about the fact that he will miss Christmas with Bruce in Gotham because of the weather. So Laurie, very nicely, I thought, invites her boyfriend to spend Christmas with her family there, wherever Hudson University is. And so Dick is like, okay. Dick seems very excited about this possibility. I'm not sure why they didn't talk about it before, but he seems very excited to be able to do this for some reason. And picks up the phone to call Uncle. I'm thinking of your comic now. Call Bruce to let him know, and then he hears Bruce's voice. Only it's not coming from the phone. Well, lo and behold, Bruce, Alfred, and Aunt Harriet decided, because they knew, Batman knows everything. He knew the weather would turn bad, so he decided to fly them all. Don't know if it's the Bat plane or not,
right?
But flew them all in. It couldn't have been because it was Aunt Harriet.
Right.
Flew them all to spend Christmas with Dick. And so Laurie invites everybody to go to their house. So they're all standing there around the piano, singing some sort of Christmas carol. But before that, Dick, a very disappointed Dick Grayson says to this situation, the fact that the people he wanted to go spend Christmas with have arrived, surprised him. And now we're going to spend Christmas with him and Laurie anyway at Laurie's parents' house, says about it, super. At least that's how I interpret the way he says it.
And they all say, "Merry Christmas, Dick Grayson," and go into a chorus of "Hark the Herald Angels Sing."
Well, see, that's just the weird thing. At the very last panel, transitions from that super comment, and it just says, the caption box says, "and so ... and that's where you see them singing around the piano. Jingle bells, jingle bells. The end.
The end. I think we all know what the deal is. Dick Grayson is a college student, and he's a horn dog. That's all there is to it.
I was, not going to say it explicitly, George, but
Oh, we got to let everybody know.
This is a family-friendly podcast.
That's true.
If I may borrow one of your phrases.
I was going to say I know nothing about family-friendly podcasts. Oh, you Dick Grayson, you scallywag.
Yeah.
That sounds like a heck of a lot of fun. How many stories would have been in something like that? 4? 3? 4?
In the giant book?
Yeah, in a giant size Batman family.
Oh,
because they did try to
Well,
they fit a lot in those things, didn't they?
Yeah, there was a new Batgirl story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forgot about this. There actually is a 2 pages. Is it just 2 pages? Yeah, 2 pages. And I found this online. Actually had a post on my website about this, about Robin costumes.
Uh-huh.
There was a 2-page spread of reader contributions for new Robin costumes. I'll show George real quick here on the video.
Okay. All right. Like you said, this is a nostalgia time of year.
Yeah.
I miss stuff like that too.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that kind of stuff.
I know all you have to do is go to Etsy, or if Zazzle still exists, or you just go to a convention and you see people's fan art and whatever. But there's something about having those pinup pages like that in a comic that, I don't know, it added to the fun, took the seriousness out of it a little bit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You can still have your story, but that's just back matter, you know?
It made you feel like a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that you could actually submit something and they'd publish it. And
yeah, just you flashing that up right now is just puts a smile on my face. So this is great. I love this stuff.
And then there's 2 more Batman stories. One is as they remember how they used to say this, George, a complete full-length novel.
Yeah. Oh,
I love that for
which
is probably a 24-page story.
Right,
something
exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basically stories. One of which is, or at least probably 2 of them are reprints. But no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love these old comics.
That was a good pick, man. I like that. All right, now this one here. This one, I mean, this could be the topic of a show in and of itself. This one, so I'm gonna do my best to just. I'm just gonna go for it.
Okay.
I got to explain this one though really quick. When I go to comic conventions, like a lot of us, your listeners, let's face it, we all have tons and tons of comics. Probably some we haven't read. Like you said, you just had 2 issues there you haven't read. I mean, I don't know when they came into your possession, but it's not like those comics came out yesterday. You may have only bought them in the last couple of months.
Couple of years, yeah.
A couple of years, which helps to prove my point that we probably could totally stop buying for a while and still have a ton of things to read and keep us occupied throughout the next calendar year. A lot of us are probably in that boat. First world problem, right? So when I go to a convention, if I'm going to buy any comics or if I'm going to even go through back issue bins, I want to find something that's a little odd, a little unique, maybe something new to me that I didn't even know existed, or maybe I was aware of, but because my tastes have changed over time, when I was a teenager, I would never have picked it up off the rack, but now I'm curious. And we all know how comic book prices are. You can get something from a dollar bin. Something could be $15, $40, a wall book for a couple of $100. But when you think about it, in today's marketplace, a new comic is upwards to $4 or $5. A graphic novel or a trade paperback could be $20, $30. So if you're willing to spend that kind of money on that, you might be willing to spend the same amount on an older book and take a chance on something you never would have read before. I don't know. I bought this a couple of years ago, I think at the Baltimore Comic-Con. Don't ask me what the store was. I was going through a box and I found this book. I did not know it existed. And I picked it up, A, because of the curiosity factor of the title, but B, because it had a holiday-themed cover. So the holiday-themed cover right there caught my eye. And the fact that I had never heard of this book before just made it a must-buy for me. Let's see. It's marked $12. I think I probably got it in a 50% bin. So for $6, I got this comic book that was cover dated February 1977. So it came out Christmas time, 76. I figured not bad. I could spend $10 on a book and not enjoy it today. So let's spend, $6 on a book that just came out and not enjoy it. I'll take a risk on something from the 70s and have a little fun. It has remained in the comic book bag ever since I bought it, and I never broke the seal. And because we were doing this episode, I said, and I knew where this book was. I said, I am reading this book specifically for this episode and this discussion with Eric. Eric, have you ever heard of the book Fast Willie Jackson?
No.
Okay.
Tell me about Fast Willie Jackson, will you please?
Well, and I'll admit, I don't normally go out to Google and Wikipedia to look up stuff. Even if I'm very curious, I don't usually have the mobile device near me. And I will say this, I'm going to go out there and do some research. Unfortunately, I haven't done it yet in preparation for this show, but I thought I had enough content here that I didn't need to look this up. So any of your listeners, if you want to go look up Fast Willie Jackson, be my guest. But I have Fast Willie Jackson number 3.
Wait, this is a series?
It is a series. It came out from a company called Fitzgerald Periodicals. And it is, I'll just say it, it's the urban version of Archie. The characters are drawn in an Archie style.
Okay.
But they're all from the ghetto. So picture, I don't know, the Archie version of the TV show Good Times.
Okay.
Or maybe not quite Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, because the characters are drawn more in an Archie fashion than a TV cartoon fashion. But and there are more stereotypes in this book than you would find in a cartoon, I think. Even though there were stereotypes back then, this one, it's pretty blatant. Maybe you could call it blaxploitation. I'm not sure. Could be a little cringeworthy, especially when it comes to the dialogue. Although I will forgive the dialogue, only because I'll bet in that Batman family there was some slang of the time used, especially by Robin. I don't know that for sure, but there's a lot of slang in this comic book that I'm not quite sure people would use today. But it is of the time, and it lets you know. Like if you read a comic from the 60s and people are saying groovy and, hey, that cat is really hip and all that stuff. That's what the jargon and the lingo was of the time. So that is prevalent in this book. I don't know who the artists are on any of the stories, although the cover art is by somebody named G. Lemoyne. And the logo, Fast Willie Jackson, and in the logo, there's a headshot of a black Santa saying, "Can you dig it?"
Oh, man.
To a white Santa replying, "Yeah, I can dig it." Just to give you an idea. Now, probably when it's not a Christmas episode, I'll bet there are 2 headshots up there with 2 people saying, "Can you dig it?" a la what Archie would do sometimes in the logo when there would be pictures of the Archies or pictures of Josie and the Pussycats up by the logo.
Mm-hmm.
And the cover is Fast Willie Jackson is asking his friend Hannibal why Frankie gets all the girls. Now, Frankie is over in the corner by a Christmas tree surrounded by all these girls, and he is dressed like a pimp. And Hannibal's answer to Fast Willie Jackson's question is, and remember the question was, what does Frankie have that I don't have? Hannibal says, just about every foxy mama in Moe's City. Now, I'm going to show you this picture.
Oh, my gosh.
And again, use it for your site. This is an audio medium, but here it is. I haven't shown you a picture of any of the other comics I've got. But there it is. Now, if you notice, down by the leg of Frankie is a girl who is holding Frankie like around the leg with a present in her hand. And I mean, it's not suggestive in any way, except this reminds me of like a Frank Frazetta sword and sorcery painting where the girl was always holding on to the Conan-like character's leg, or even Princess Leia was almost doing it in some of the original artwork from Star Wars, if I remember some of the original artwork from back then. So it's not suggestive in any way, but it's again an objectification that I don't think we would tolerate today. So let me tell you a little bit about Fast Willie Jackson and how once again I got hornswoggled because, Eric, there is very little about Christmas in this issue. And the only reason I kept it on here is because I know you would never have heard of Fast Willie Jackson.
No.
But we'll go real fast.
Well, wait. Before you get to that, George, As you've been talking, I've been looking up pictures of the Fast Willie Jackson comic.
Okay.
And
let's get into it.
well, what I'm struck by though is this looks just like Archie comic art.
Oh yeah.
Is it by the same artist, or are they just totally ripping off?
I mean,
Archie comics.
I think it's a ripoff because the company is called Fitzgerald Periodicals.
Yeah, this is so weird.
Unless they're a division of Archie trying to separate themselves for some reason, I don't know. There are no credits, and I don't see any artist marks, even a last name on any of the panels. So it would take a little digging. I guess we could always find out who did this. But you're right; it is in the vein of Archie, but it's urban Archie.
Okay.
On the back cover of this particular issue, and I will send you a picture of it, there is a solicitation to subscribe to the book. And there are a bunch of characters standing there with little place cards in front of them to tell you what their names are. I'm going to tell you about some of those people here now, so I'm not going to go through all that, but this picture will be a nice picture for you to put on the site so everybody could see who the main characters are, a la Archie, Jughead, Betty, Veronica, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. In the Fast Willie Jackson world. All right, let's get on to it. Story 1. Let's dance, Officer Flag. Now, Officer Flag is Caucasian, and the first panel is music is blaring from a city building that looks like a ghetto type of building, and he thinks to himself, and I quote, "I know they're up to something up there, gambling or drinking wine, who knows what else." So already, this comic is 40 years old. I mean, it's not like we don't know what's been going on in this country for hundreds of years, but I'm telling you, this comic it doesn't pull any punches on anything but it makes you wonder. Sometimes when I read the dialogue, I wonder who is writing this. Like, what is the background of the person writing this?
Right, yeah.
Obviously, it's an Archie ripoff, but who is writing this? It's almost like sometimes when in the comics world, we have accused the 60-year-old man trying to write the 14-year-old superhero, mm-hmm. Yeah. and trying to get the lingo right? So which I think lends itself to stereotype. He goes into the building and he says, "Listen to that racket. They can't be doing anything worthwhile in there." Now, of course, all they're doing is they're playing their instruments. They're a band a la the Archies. I don't know what the band is.
I was just going to say, yeah.
That's all they do. Now, for some reason, the officer makes a sound in the hallway, and they hear it, and they guess that it's Officer Flag getting set to make a big bust. That was a quote, by the way. Getting set to make a big bust. Officer Flag recognizes that the noise sounds almost like music. And he begins dancing in the hall, being reminded of getting out of the Army in 1955 and dancing the jitterbug to the McGuire sisters. Then he starts dancing with Dee Dee, one of the main characters, in the hallway, and the story ends. They're all friends, right? They're all friends, but of course he said, tomorrow is another day. But for right now, we're friends because you're playing music and I'm dancing with Dee Dee in the hallway.
Oh, jeez.
Story number 2 is one of those 2-page gags like you would see in an Archie comic book. That's a kind of a quick joke, maybe 10 panels. Jose, who owns the local... Now, Jose would be the fill-in for Pop Tate from the Archie comics world. And his diner, the chocolate shop, was the one in Archie. The one in this book is the Spanish Main. Now, just offhandedly, he mentions the Christmas season, and there are wreaths in the background. And Eric, this is the only story that references Christmas in any way. So 2-page gag. There's a wreath on the wall in the store, and the kids sitting at the diner bar say something about it being the Christmas season. That's it.
Huh. Okay.
Again, bamboozled, I'm telling you. Okay, story number 3. Fast Willie in the shakes. Willie is shaking convulsively for no reason when he's hanging out with his friends near the storefront of Sister Zola's fortune-telling shop. She sees this as an opportunity to bilk the boys and says it's Satan's work, and she can help. The guys know she's a fraud, but they go inside her shop anyway, and I quote, this is a quote, "Now cross my palm with the long green," which means pay me money, and then she'll give him some magic seeds to fix whatever this shaking is. They're about to leave when Zola's granddaughter, Cleo, who is visiting from the West Indies with the out-of-sight accent, introduces herself. Willie miraculously stops shaking all of a sudden. They can't figure out why, and they think that Cleo is a witch. Okay, so now, first of all, they think Sister Zola is a fraud as a fortune teller, but they immediately think Cleo is a witch because the guy stopped shaking, right? So, how they
totally makes sense.
Yeah, of course. But they have to find out how, right? So how are they going to find out? Well, Frankie, the pimp, the guy who dresses like a pimp, should take her out on a date and find out. And then the story, then it says the end, right? It doesn't say to be continued. What? It's the end.
What?
Story number 4 is Frankie's night out. So it's a continuation.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The guys tell Frankie he has to ask Cleo to the rock concert. But he's so cool, he's never asked the girl out before. They always ask him. So Hannibal, one of the other characters in the book, does the asking for him. And she says yes. But now they have to get the tickets for the rock concert. So they call. They can't go online. This is the 70s. They call. And they find out that the concert is sold out. Uh-oh, what are they going to do? Coincidentally, Cleo comes to the Spanish Main where they're hanging out. She knew that's where they were because she wanted to hang out with them. And as she walks through the door, what appears in the threshold of the doorway as she walks by? 2 tickets to the rock concert. And they're like, that's weird. Where did those come from? Is she really a witch? So Frankie takes her out to the concert. Oh, and they run out in fear of her, thinking she's a witch. She wanted to hang out with them, and they just leave her because they think she's a witch. But they take the 2 concert tickets so that Frankie could take her later that night. Frankie meets up with the guys after the concert and says he's a complete failure because not one girl at the concert asked him out on a date, which has never happened to him before. He's been out on dates before, and other women just walk up to him, apparently like the Fonz, and say, I want to date you, or start kissing him or whatever. So, of course, it has been determined that Cleo must be a witch. The end. Eric, this is not addressed anywhere else in the issue.
Oh, my gosh.
Nowhere else. So, why did the guy have the shakes? Where did the tickets come from? Has Frankie been jinxed in some way? We'll never know unless this is...
We'll never know.
This might be their odd way of having a continuing serialized story, and you'd have to play issue number 4. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Very, very strange.
Wow.
Then there's a 3-page gag about Frankie's pimp out and fit versus another character, Jabbar's Dashiki. And then there's a 6-page story that essentially details how the band was created, which kind of like what you were saying before about one of your about the title of the Robin story being a little backwards. I would have thought the origin story of the band should have happened before the police officer wanted to shut the band down, because it wasn't really told as a flashback type of thing. The guys were just standing there saying, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" "Well, I want to be this, that, or the other thing." One guy said, "I want to be a rock star." So then they start making fun of them, and then eventually they form a band. So I thought that was a little backwards to do it that way. Then there's the one. Go ahead.
Maybe they just had a couple of pages to fill for that issue.
Then there's a one-page gag on the inside back cover. Willie's aunt. Oh God, I don't even want to tell you this one, but okay, I'm going to tell you. Willie's aunt Millie and Mr. Brown will be visiting for the weekend. So Dee Dee asks, "Why do you call your Aunt Millie, but you call your uncle Mr. Brown?" And he said, well, he wants me to call him that. And she said, well, what's his name? And he said, well, because his name is Tom. I see the eyebrow going up.
Okay.
This is what passed. I don't know. Anyway, that was it. Now, there were no ads in the book except for one ad for a Golden Legacy illustrated history book to learn more about Black history.
Okay.
That was only, so otherwise, there were no ads in the books. It was just story, story, story. So,
well, is there something redeeming about this comic?
Yeah. So again, not too holiday themed, even though the cover makes you think it's going to be a Christmas themed issue.
Mm-hmm.
But if nothing else, it was a history lesson.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I felt, you know what? Again, that's why I stuck with my original comics that I pulled, even though I was surprised how they lacked Christmas themes, except for the Brave and the Bold.
Think about it, George. It is very much like Christmas because you have something wrapped in this pretty colorful paper, and you open it up, and you might get, the wonderful toy surprise that you wanted for Christmas, or you might get, socks or something.
Mm-hmm. And the trumpet. I will say one other thing. There were, there were the African-American main characters. There was the Latin gentleman and his daughter, I guess, who owned the diner. And the Caucasian people in the book were Officer Flagg, who obviously discriminates against everybody in the neighborhood, and a character who didn't appear in any story, but she was on that back cover I was telling you about that I'll send you, and her name was Ms. Jane Fonda.
What?
Mm-hmm. So I would love to read a story with Ms. Jane Fonda in it. And she was the only one. Well, no, I'm not going to say that because the owner of the store, his full name was used. I was going to say that hers was the only full name that was used, first name, last name, but I'd be wrong about that. But I thought that was kind of funny. I would have been very curious to see how she's depicted in the book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I am I am intrigued, and I don't know, this is a bizarre concept to me.
And only now that we're talking about it, I mean, I have comic price guides over the years, and I've got the new one. But I mean, I could have simply, I guess, looked in it to see how long a run this had, or I could have looked it up. But this was issue number 3, so it at least lasted 3 issues.
Well, as you were describing the comic, George, I was frantically looking up on the internet what this was all about, because I had, as you were describing that cover and whatnot,
mm-hmm.
I had to see for myself what this was, and I ran across a blog called Blog Into Mystery, and they have a Black History Month posting about this comic.
Oh, no way.
The series, yeah. And so your guess about the Fitzgerald Publishing Company,
mm-hmm.
maybe it was the person who owned it may have written some of these. I think you said that before, and apparently you were right. So apparently it was written. The series was written in spurts by company owner Bertram Fitzgerald, who likely wrote the whole series. It says. And they talk a little bit about this being Black Archie.
Mm-hmm.
And the series artist was Gus Lemoyne.
Oh yeah, he did the cover. He did sign the cover.
Okay,
yeah.
And apparently he had some Archie credits.
Oh, good.
To his name, okay. It says
makes sense. Yeah, when you see that artwork, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, that's what when I first saw that, I'm like, that's what threw me. It's like, oh my god, this did Archie Comics do this and then put it out under a different publishing company or something? Right. I'm very intrigued and I want to know more about this. So I might have to do some research on my own.
It was interesting when I found it in that back issue bin. I had never heard of it before, and it just hit all the bells, especially since there was a Christmas tree on the cover, and there was the tease that it might be a Christmas themed issue, a la Archie's Christmas Spectaculars and the Betty and Veronica stocking stuffer, or whatever they were called at the time. So again, I was fooled, They're judging a book by its cover, literally, figuratively, metaphorically, however you want to say it. But again, a nice history lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I think you put my choices to shame, George, with that one.
Oh no,
sure.
I don't. Well, here I only have 33% that are really holiday themed. So no, not at all.
Well, my final choice here, at least for the particular issue that I'm going to talk about, is a DC Comics Presents issue. So I'm going back to Superman now. So Superboy, Robin, and now Superman. This is DC Comics Presents number 67 with a 75-cent cover price.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the Fast Willie Jackson was 30 cents.
30 cents. Wow.
From
okay.
December 1976.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a cheap comic.
Yeah.
So this comic, DC Comics Presents number 67, was published on December 8th, 1983. And this features a team up between Superman and everyone's favorite Santa Claus, actual Santa Claus, in a story called "'Twas the Fright Before Christmas."
Dun, dun, dun.
This is by Len Wein, E. Nelson Bridwell, Kurt Swan, Murphy Anderson, Ben Oda, Gene D'Angelo, with a cover by the wonderful and great Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
Man.
So we talked about Jim Apato's Batman. Garcia Lopez's Superman.
Yeah. Oh man. Beautiful. Me. What a beautiful cover too.
Yeah. I the art by Kurt Swan and Murphy Anderson, good, but I would have preferred, Garcia Lopez
sure.
on the interiors, but whatever. So this is a bizarre, and on the cover, Superman's carrying a bag, smile on his face, a bag full of presents, presumably helping Santa out. And behind a chimney on this house is Toyman, poised to strike. So you could kind of get a sense of what's going to happen in this story.
Mm-hmm.
And so the story opens up with Superman just kind of flying down because there's this boy threatening a sidewalk Santa, the ringing the bell, trying to get some donations. And he's got this, what do you call those little toy guns that shoot the little...
Oh, like a cap gun? Not a
cap gun. The little sticker things that stick to your head if you shoot them at your forehead. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, it's not a plunger gun, but I mean, essentially a plunger shot to your head.
Something like that. Yeah. I had a ton of those when I was a kid.
Yeah, I don't know what they're called.
Yeah. Weird that I don't know that, but
yeah.
Anyway. So Superman sees this stick up happening between this little boy and Santa, and he helps put a stop to it. I mean, there was no real danger there. It was just a toy gun after all. Mm-hmm. But the Superman, for some reason, decides to uses X-ray vision on the gun, and he spots some sort of secret mechanism inside. And it's emitting a low-grade radiation on the boy, which is in turn causing him to act out of nature.
Oh.
And because he keeps saying the same thing over and over and over again to this sidewalk Santa, just hand over all your money or. And so Superman decides to, much like Superboy did with Bash Bashford, kidnap this young boy. I mean, take him to his fortress of solitude to investigate. I see a pattern here with Superman, George. This guy's a little creepy.
He's lucky there weren't Amber Alerts back then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, jeez.
So he takes a look at the boy with this kind of like an eye. When you go to the eye doctor and they have you look through the little lenses and stuff, it kind of looks like that. But anyway, the boy snaps out of it and tells his story about what happened, how he found these toys in his parents' closet, and that's where the toy gun with the radiation he finds. And of course, Superman guesses who's behind this, and then he decides to take the boy back so that he can go pursue Toyman, presumably. And one of the toys that the boy is carrying, awkwardly, as Superman is carrying the boy in his cape, and I'll show George on the video here. I don't know if you can see that. But so yeah, that toy is just kind of sticking out awkwardly in the panel. You know, it's just a plot contrivance because it blasts Superman with this super gravity ray out of this little toy.
Mm-hmm.
Superman plummets to the earth, but manages to protect the boy from being killed. But he's unconscious. And so the boy's trying to wake him up, and it's not helping. He's starting to freak out. And lo and behold, some little people show up.
Mm.
And they've got pointed ears and beards, and they're dressed a little kind of strangely, you know, for this time period. But they take Superman back, and they cut to a scene with Toyman, and you know it is him, and he's out to, you know, ruin Superman's Christmas or, you know, kill him. Either way,
yeah.
Superman wakes up and sees these elves, and lo and behold, he sees. It's Kris Kringle.
Mm.
He's been rescued by Santa's elves. and Santa even says, but most folks, my name is Kringle, friend Superman, Kris Kringle. But most folks prefer to call me Santa Claus. Ho, 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 ho.
That was good. I got to tell you, that was good.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so then Santa decides to show Superman and the boy around, shows him the workshop, and curious. So this is 1984, or you know, end of 1983 when this comes out, and they show the elves at a bank of computers, and they even make a comment about the wonders of the computer age, and they've got these monitors that, well, one of the monitors shows Toyman working on some gadget, you know, so they're spying on Toyman from Santa's workshop, you know.
Because he's on the naughty list.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it actually reminded me a bit of, I don't know if you've seen the new holiday classic, Arthur Christmas, George?
Yes, I have seen Arthur Christmas.
Yeah, so it kind of reminded me of that, you know, because the son, the older son of Santa is trying to bring the whole operation into the modern age, and it kind of reminded me of that, only you know, 30 years earlier. And so all this hustle and bustle of the elves making toys spurs a memory in Superman's mind about when he was a baby on Krypton, when he had this toy. It was some sort of holographic thing. It says it was capable of transforming my own brainwaves into realistic holographic images. What a shame it was destroyed when Krypton exploded.
Mm.
Spoiler alert, George. This will come back later in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So Santa decides to give Superman a lift because he's still weak from this gravity beam thing that Toyman unleashed upon him. And they end up going to where Toyman is to break up whatever it is he's doing. And then we get a few pages of a fight between Superman and a bunch of toys that not only is he weakened by the gravity beam, George, but Toyman somehow has acquired some kryptonite, and some of the toys, their weapons are kryptonite laced or something. And so that's causing Superman a lot of problem. You know, otherwise this fight would be over in 2 seconds. Even Superman is worried. He says, I'll be in no condition to worry about anything ever again if he doesn't deal with this, you know, very quickly. And that's when Santa and the elves help by unleashing a bunch of Santa toys that take care of Toyman's toys. And what amazes me about this is this fight scene between essentially toys and Superman goes on for like 5 pages of this comic.
So you couldn't get away with that today.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't fly. And then you know, they take care of Toyman, and Superman helps Santa Claus out by going to all of the good little girls and boys who somehow got Toyman's tainted toys. And so he goes and replaces them all with toys from Santa, you know, doing the whole creepy thing again because he's going into people's, you know, little children's bedrooms and stealing toys and but at least he's replacing them. I'll give him that one. But, so they're about ready to, Superman's about ready to take, Tim. Is it Tim? It is Tim. Right. I'm looking at my notes here. Hold on a second. Where is it? Yes, Tim. the boy in the story is named Tim.
Is he short?
So yeah. But he's not he's not
minuscule,
lame like Timmy or Tiny Tim.
Right.
So he's about ready to take Tim back home, and then that same stupid toy that blasted him in the first place, somehow Tim still has it, and then it blasts Superman again. Superman falls back, and suddenly they're back in the Arctic where he first landed at the beginning of the story, George.
Mm.
And Superman says, all I can remember is the wild dream I was having. There were reindeer and elves, and believe it or not, there was Santa Claus. And so Superman takes Tim home. Superman himself goes back to 344 Clinton Street, his Clark Kent's apartment, and he's reaching into his secret pocket in his cape, where he keeps his Clark Kent clothes because he's going to change and go to a party, with Lana and others. And then George, he pulls out Great Krypton, he says. It's the old hollow toy my father made for me, the one I thought destroyed, but that's impossible. Isn't it? And then the very last panel is, because this is a hollow toy, it reads his thoughts, apparently. And so his thought, George, is that Santa Claus is holding up a sign that says, Merry Christmas, Superman.
I love it. I love it.
Quite honestly, George, when, because the DC Comics presents issues that I have, I don't have a complete run. I only bought the team ups of characters that I wanted to get, specific characters I like, or oddball characters. And this is definitely one of those. It's like Superman and Santa Claus together. Right. How does that work? And so I had to get this issue.
Right?
I must buy it. And now I see how it works, and it's lame and wonderful at the same time.
It is. And I know this has come up when you and I have been together, but I've said it on my show too. Comics like that where a kid could just pick up a Superman comic, read it, have a one and done, even if there was some running subplot, or maybe a 2-part story. It's not as simple for a kid to just pick up Superman number, what was that, 62 or of DC Comics presents you just have there?
67.
Yeah. A kid can't do that. And not like a kid would, because most kids have to be dragged to the comic book store and introduced to it by their parents because they can't just get it at 7-Eleven or the gas station or whatever. But issues like that are fun and should be introduced to kids who are just reading now, because that's fun. You and I think about it too much. We make jokes here and there. But hey, a kid at 10, 12 years old, they'll love that story, especially this time of year.
I love it. It's also fun to make a little bit of fun of about it too.
If I can't dig that issue out of those boxes before Christmas this year, I'll find it in another dollar bin somewhere. Oh man, that was a lot of fun, and no backup.
Oh, in this one, no.
Okay, so that was
I don't believe they
a novel length story.
A novel length story, as they say.
Oh, that's a lot of fun, man. One thing I neglected to tell you about Fast Willie Jackson, just for a moment, to go back to him. I read the letters page, and because the book was geared toward younger kids, I think the letters were really more 3 sentences, 4 sentences saying how much they loved the first issue of the book. Reading the slang and the lingo and the jargon in there, I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Fitzgerald didn't write those letters himself.
The letters themselves, not the responses. The letters.
There were no responses.
Okay.
Although there was a personal message to somebody that made it sound like a letter was sent to them that might have had a serious problem. And all they said was something like, talk to somebody about it because you shouldn't be made to feel bad about that, whatever that is. They didn't get into specifics. But it was one of those things almost like, who we're talking to. We're talking to you. And this is the one sentence of advice we can give you for whatever the real serious problem is that you may have written to us about. So that was a little curious that they would have even done that. But I mean, you've got a groovy book. I really think Fast Willie is whatever the jargon for the bomb would have been in the 70s. It just didn't seem like real people, even kids of the day, would have written a letter with those terms and phrases in it. It would be what an adult would have expected a kid to say. You know what I mean?
Speaking of George, you said, whatever the equivalent of the bomb is, that would have been, if I'm not mistaken, dynamite.
Yeah. You know what? I think somebody did put dynamite in there. See? Again, I think somebody was just watching Good Times and taking the slang right out of there. Oh, man. I bring up the letters column because I have 2 honorable mentions. I know we're going very, very long, but do you mind if I talk about them really quick?
No, go right ahead.
Like I was saying, I was trying to find books in my long boxes, and I got lucky that I came across what I did. What I also came across was an issue of Marvel Age. Do you remember Marvel Age, the official Marvel news magazine? I used to love that.
I loved that, yeah.
So even though the cover has the Marvel Age logo with the candy cane red and white stripes, and Forbish Man has he's popping out of a wreath in the corner box, and it's solicited as a special Christmas issue spotlighting Marvel's graphic novels. I mean, it's really an early version of Marvel previews, right? Mm-hmm. So the cover is Gru, Sergio Aragonis' Gru. He apparently destroyed a Christmas tree to use the wood as a skewer for some obscure animal that he's roasting over an open fire. And all these kids with ornaments are behind him crying because he did that he destroyed their tree. So that's what that's about. So the only reason I wanted to bring this up real quick was it was cover dated April 1988, and it had a 50-cent cover price. And I just wanted to talk about a couple of the things that were solicited in there real quick, just for nostalgia purposes. Like you were saying, the holidays are nostalgia time. Graphic novels were relatively new to the marketplace at the time, but a lot of them had come out by this point in late 1987. And a lot more came out than I remembered came out. I mean, sure, we all know the death of Captain Marvel, New Mutants, X-Men, God Loves, Man Kills. Mm-hmm. But I forgot about, Dazzler, the movie, I think had just come out. Oh, yeah. But there were there were a bunch of them, but one in particular was called Super Boxers by Ron Wilson, who used to do Marvel 2-in-1. And I think I've got that, but I was like, Ron Wilson, I'm not sure I would have read a graphic novel with his artwork in it, but you know what? I think I've got it upstairs somewhere, so I might dig that out. And there was a Thing Hulk graphic novel written by Jim Starlin with artwork by Bernie Wrightson.
Wow. And
I think it was called The Big Change, and I believe I have that too, but I don't remember it. So that would be nice to rediscover that. So a lot of things that came out back then when the graphic novel was a new form, I don't think had been reprinted a lot. Some of the more popular things have, but I know IDW now is finally reprinting Swords of the Swashbucklers. It started as a graphic novel, went into a couple of issue series. I forget how much, but I mean, that was a Marvel graphic novel. So it was very interesting to see all this stuff. And then they wrote articles about them, and they wanted to introduce the reader to the concept of graphic novels and the new concept of the hardcover Marvel Masterworks. Now, did you ever have any of those when they first came?
I did not.
No.
I couldn't afford them, George.
But when I got them? I got them as Christmas and birthday gifts.
Very nice.
That's how I got them, because people knew.
Your family loved you better than they loved me. My family loved me.
Well, it was an easy thing. They knew I liked it. It was just a matter of, could they get the right characters, and they always seemed to hit the mark. So, according to Jim Salicrup, and I don't know if I'm ever pronouncing his name right, but in Salicrup's section, he says this issue spotlights our entire line of graphic novels, and it educates us on the Marvel Masterworks. Also, he apparently didn't like the term Marvel Zombie, And I'm guessing, I think this is a debate that was going on within Marvel Age for a couple of months. People going back and forth about, no, it's a good thing. We're Marvel zombies. We're good. No, it was derogatory, created by the DC people. It was just crazy. Very interesting. There was a Christmas issue solicited in here, actually two. X-Men number 229 by Claremont, Silvestri, and Dan Green for 75 cents. And there was a Spider-Man issue with X-Man. I never really got into X-Man, but apparently he appeared in a Christmas issue. And you know what comic they were soliciting that was going to come out in the following month? Amazing Spider-Man number 300, the first appearance of some character called Venom.
Oh, wow.
There was a top.
Who knew?
Yeah, I know, right? They had a top 10 list. They had a Stan soapbox. They had a Willie Lumpkin 4-panel comic by Stan Lee and Dan DeCarlo. And they had a 2-page Fred Hembeck comic promoting Marvel graphic novels. So a lot of cool stuff in there in the Marvel page.
Yeah, that's actually one title where I've often thought I'm going to try and go find some of those. Mm-hmm.
It is interesting to read the solicits. It's like having an old previews hanging around the house. And some of the articles are pretty fun. It's basically a book of ads anyway, but there was an ad for a Doctor Who magazine subscription to celebrate the 25th year of Doctor Who.
25, yeah.
and the back cover was a full-page ad for new monthly fun with Alf. I
remember Alf. The show and the comic.
Mm-hmm. So that was a lot of fun to dig that out. And in the vein of the Archie comics, I found a very well-read issue of Archie Giant Series magazine, number 219 from December 1973, presenting Little Jinx Christmas Grab Bag. Now, did you ever read Little Jinx before?
I don't.
Here it is.
Doesn't sound very familiar.
I'll send you a picture. It's very well read. When people say well read, okay. This is well read.
Yeah, I can see a little bit of that. Yeah.
It's all bent up. Drawing on the cover. There's a puzzle page in there. I did the maze. There's a maze in there, and I actually did it. There's words to unscramble. I didn't unscramble them in the book. It's a typical Christmas Archie type Christmas issue. There was one main story where rich girl Gigi kind of poo-poos everything that the kids want for Christmas. She's a rich kid, but her parents are divorced, so she has 2 mommies, 2 daddies. She doesn't know whether she's going to spend Christmas with the one in the French Riviera or the one in the Bahamas or whatever. And it turns out none of her parents want to spend Christmas with her, so she's stuck at home alone with the servants, even though she turned down Little Jinx's invitation to the big holiday party at her house. But lo and behold, I bring you tidings of great joy, Eric, because Little Jinx doesn't give up. She calls on Christmas Eve anyway, hoping she would still be home and she would change her mind. And Gigi does just that. And as the kids all get together, they wish a happy holiday season and a Merry Christmas to all their readers. And then the book is followed up. It's a lot of fun. And the book is just followed up by a bunch of 1- and 2-page holiday-themed gags. Real simple. The ads in the book for the time, I mean, again, we're talking 1973. Free Red China stamps from Red China. Forbidden.
What?
Forbidden for a generation. Then you have Sea Monkeys, the famous Sea Monkeys.
Of course.
You could buy home movies, newsreel films of David Bowie, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Elvis, Chuck Berry, and Alice Cooper. I don't know where that comes from. And they can play on all your home Super 8 and regular 8 projectors. So, Eric, jump on that. You could also get any 15 records or any 11 tapes for $1.97 if
I remember that ad.
You join the Columbia Record and Tape Club and buy 11 more. And the tapes could either be cartridges, cassettes, or reel tapes, reel-to-reel tapes.
Oh my gosh! Wow, reel-to-reel.
Yes, and something that you would never see today. Little Jinx's pen pals. Okay, get this, Eric. There is a page. Okay. It said something like, "Hey kids, are you tired of being alone and not having somebody to talk to? Wouldn't it be nice to have a pen pal? Well, all you got to do is fill out an index card and or write a postcard to a pen pal. And if you want to be part of this, send us your name, address, and age to Little Jinx's pen pals. And in the meantime, you may write to anyone listed below. And there is
my gosh,
Eric, a list of kids, whether the names, addresses, and ages. I kid you not.
It was a different time, George.
It was a different time. Innocent.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. Anyway, this was a true Christmas grab bag. The one and 2 page gags were all holiday and winter themed, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I could imagine picking this up. I probably got this off of a newsstand when I was 10 years old or whatever, and just obviously barreled through it. I drew on it. I did the maze, and just had a lot of fun with it because it was a giant Christmas issue.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well loved comic right there.
Yes, that is a very nice way to put it. Well loved.
It's funny the Jinx story where you mentioned how they basically turn to us and say Merry Christmas or whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. Where they break that fourth wall.
Yep.
That reminded me, and this will be the last thing I'll bring up from my side of things, but grade school, I want to say maybe 4th grade, maybe 5th grade, I wrote about Christmas time right before the Christmas break. I don't know why. I'm sure it had to do with some class project. You know, everybody had to do something. And I wrote, and I did this twice. I did it one year and I did the next year. But the story was basically, I wrote a Star Trek episode and it was set during Christmas time.
Okay.
And had something to do with Orion pirates and the ship was in peril and Captain Kirk takes care of it. And at the very end, and this is really all I remember specifically, George, at the very end of this episode, quotes, episode, Captain Kirk and the entire crew turns to the audience in my story and says, "We want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas," or something to that extent.
Oh, Eric, that's awesome. Does that still exist somewhere or no?
No, I don't have.
Yeah,
it.
okay.
but for some reason that just jarred my memory and that came flooding back. So,
are there any holiday issues you're looking forward to currently? I know you go through DCBS most of the time. Do you have a lot of holiday issues in your upcoming order?
This year, I don't believe I do. In fact, I just got. Today, as we were record this, George, I just got all of my comics from all of November, or the rest of November from DCBS, and I was trying to think of. No, wait, there is one. I can't tell you what it is because I just don't remember. I remember that going through the October previews, mm-hmm. There were a few holiday theme ones, and I think I got at least one. I wish I could remember what it is. I should look that up.
But you probably got the DC special, I would guess.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's the one I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course.
I saw that.
Of course, I got the DC holiday.
Yeah, I saw that on the rack at our local comic shop, Comic Logic. So that was up there. I saw Faith's Winter Wonderland from Valiant. I know IDW will have the Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck Christmas Parade, which I always buy. I love that. The one I did buy is Santa Claus Private Eye. I tweeted about it when I was reading.
Right.
It's by.
I remember you doing that. Yeah.
Jeremy Bernstein and Michael Dorman. It's by from Darby Pop Publishing. Good. It was a good buy. I mean, it's a prestige format. It was cover price $14.99, but it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also that Grant Morrison Klaus.
Yes, a one-shot,
right?
Yes.
There was, that one-shot special. I almost got that. Mm-hmm. I actually didn't buy it, mm-hmm. but I was intrigued.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. And there was a lot last year. The Power Man and Iron Fist Sweet Christmas special, that was a good one.
Oh, right, yeah.
There was an X-Files Christmas special that I bought. I think there's a Christmas special in the Hellboy universe this year where he meets Krampus or something like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I almost bought that one too.
So there's always a lot of stuff on the stands, and you never know. Your typical superhero books, every once in a while, throw something in there.
Yeah,
Flash, I think, had one last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the Christmas time holiday special comics that come out. which is really bizarre because if you ask my wife, she'll tell you that I hate Christmas, which is not true.
Your birthday's around Christmas.
I hate Christmas.
Your birthday's right around Christmas.
I hate winter is what I hate.
Well, that's understandable. But you can't hate Christmas. Your birthday's right around then. And of course, let me tell you happy birthday right now, even though it's not here yet, but happy birthday to you.
Well, and the same to you, because I know your birthday is also this month.
Thank you. Our December birthdays have to stick together. Everybody asks, do you get gypped? I wouldn't necessarily say we get gypped, but maybe a little forgotten every once in a while, but that's okay. May I ask you one question before we go? I know your listeners have dealt with me monopolizing your time, but I wanted to ask, do you follow Back Issue Magazine on Facebook by any chance?
Yes.
Have you noticed that over the past month or two, somebody on the page has been posting comparison photos of the New Teen Titans and then the Prestige run that was the Tales of the New Teen Titans and the New Teen Titans Prestige issues and the Legion and the Tales of the Legion issues that correspond to each other. Have you seen those comparisons?
I have not. I will go look at this right away.
Yes, I think it would interest you and, of course, Peter, your co-host on the Legion Project, and your listeners, because it's fun to see the comparisons of the two covers for the same stories. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I've been enjoying doing that too, as Peter and I have been going through the Baxter run of the Legion. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that I do when I'm reviewing one of our issues is that I go look at the newsstand version that appeared a year later after the Baxter version came out. So that's been a lot of fun too.
Yeah. So I thought of you guys when I was checking that out because they would pop up in random in my feed. And I meant to ask you about it, but I figured now is a good time to tell you about it. Plus your listeners can go check it out if they ever want to.
Yeah, they should. Yeah. All right. Excellent. Well, George, thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you. Thank you, because
these Christmas comics.
This show would not have been as long if I wasn't here. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate not only your time here tonight as we talk, but also for suggesting this specific format. This is a lot of fun for me, and I hope our listeners enjoyed it as well. So if they have, I invite them to let us know. Not only did, specific things about what we talked about in this episode, but if they have, similar comics like we chose, Christmas themed or
Christmas covered,
Christmas covered Christmas issues. Yeah.
This is one of those fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Once. Right. One of the comics I picked, I mean, how many did I pick? I originally only had the 3. So really my odds were not, if I got 1 that faked me out, but 2 that faked me out. And how many out there are really like that, where the cover isn't depicting what's in the book, right? Mm-hmm. If there's a Christmas tree on the cover, you'd expect at least a Christmas story in the book, at least the main story, right?
Something to do with Christmas, right?
How did I get picked 2 that were exactly like that, where they had nothing to do with Christmas? Oh my goodness. So I apologize for that. And if we do this next year, A, I promise to streamline my comments, and B, I promise that if I do pick up one and get hornswoggled again, where the cover is the only thing that has to do with the holidays or winter, I will not even mention that one, and I will move on to something else.
All right. But like I said, I'm saying, if anybody they'd like to share their picks, some of their favorites, or, maybe not, they're not so favorite Christmas comics. I'd love to hear from people.
Yeah.
And they can do that by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com or message me on Twitter at longboxreview. There are various other ways you can get a hold of me. If you go to longboxreview.com, you can find those out. And George, how can people contact you if they wish to do so?
I have kept the Facebook page alive and well. It is George and Tony Entertainment. And the reason I've done that is because when whatever new project I am working on with other folks comes to pass, it is the optimum place for anybody to know about it. So please follow me at George and Tony Entertainment, or if you're a Twitter fan, George and Tony on Twitter. Currently not on Instagram, but I think I am going to be paired up. I shouldn't say paired up. There will hopefully be more than me and one other person on this new project. And hopefully at least one of those other people will be very tech savvy and very social media savvy, and they'll get us everywhere we need to go. But for now, and I'm going to, around the holidays, blast out posts about past holiday episodes of the George and Tony Entertainment Show that I thought were fun.
Good.
I always loved it. One of the things I mentioned on episode 200 is I loved our holiday episodes, especially when we would have a Secret Santa. We would play an iPod game where we would just randomly pick Christmas songs, and Tony would make fun of my taste in music. So those are always fun. And of course, anybody could just grab those from our archives. But I'll be posting here and there. Of course, I'll be posting about this episode on George and Tony Entertainment on Facebook and George and Tony on Twitter. So thank you very much.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm pleased to hear that, because I'm also anxiously looking forward to whatever your next project is, George. So, and
just to let your listeners know, I begged and pleaded Eric to be a part of this new project, but Eric is a very busy man. But just like he guest hosted on my last show, I am hoping to at least get you, Eric, to be a guest on this show every once in a while and give us some information and insight on the comics you're reading at whatever time that happens to be.
It would totally be my pleasure, George.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Once again, George, Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thank you. Same to you, and enjoy your birthday later this month.
And you as well. And to our listeners, I say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good stuff. Keep warm. And enjoy your time with your friends and family. That's the most important thing, of course. And with that, I will talk to you guys next year, I'm sure. Bye-bye.